Buckle up, because today we're diving into a topic that might just rock your world.
It's about land ownership here in the
Yeah.
US.
And land ownership, the thing we think we understand?
Right. Seems pretty simple, right? Buy a house, get a deed, you're good to go.
Exactly. But we're about to uncover some seriously mind-blowing stuff based on this Dane Calloway video.
Oh yeah, this one's a doozy.
Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about owning a piece of the good old US of A.
Because get this, we're talking about the possibility of states actually being corporations.
Corporations.
That's-
They're businesses.
Yep. And what that could mean for our rights.
Okay, so right off the bat, we're dealing with some pretty wild ideas here.
Yeah, we are.
So let's start with this whole United States being a corporation thing.
Right, so this isn't, some fringe conspiracy theory.
Right.
There are actual legal interpretations out there suggesting that the U.S. operates as a federal corporation.
A whole country running like a business. Seriously.
Well, think about it. Corporations have shareholders. They have that, hierarchical structure.
Yeah.
They operate under specific legal frameworks.
Makes sense.
Now, apply that to a nation. It really makes you question that whole traditional idea of what national sovereignty even is.
Yeah, like does a corporation nation put profits ahead of its people?
Exactly. And how does that impact, relationships with other countries?
It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure.
It is.
And then things get even more interesting.
Oh, yeah.
When this deep dive suggests that each state within the U.S., each individual state, could actually be its own corporation.
Mm-hmm. Its own separate entity.
So then who are the shareholders in this scenario? Are we, the citizens, the shareholder?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
If states are corporations, do they have a responsibility to, maximize profit?
Even if it means going against what's best for the people living there.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, think about the implications. Land use, taxes, environmental regulations, all of that.
Stuff that we usually think of as political decisions.
Exactly. But suddenly you could start to see them through this corporate lens.
With maybe different priorities at play.
Possibly.
Whoa, I never thought about it like that before.
It's a whole other level of complexity.
Yeah, like this hidden layer of influence that's always been there.
And most of us are totally oblivious to it.
Exactly. And it makes you think about, the historical context too.
Oh, absolutely.
This deep dive reminds us that, indigenous peoples were the original owners of this land, of all this land.
Right, and that's a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. How does that historical ownership factor into this whole corporate structure thing?
Well, it brings a whole other level of complexity to the discussion.
Right.
We're talking centuries of, treaties, broken promises, forced displacement.
Yeah, a lot of really heavy stuff.
Exactly, and it makes you question how we can reconcile these modern ideas of land ownership.
With that history, with that legacy.
Right, and this isn't just about the past either.
Definitely not.
There are still legal battles happening right now over land rights.
Mm-hmm. And the whole question of reparations, too.
Exactly. Some people argue that recognizing historical ownership is the only way to truly address those past injustices.
It makes you wonder what owning land really means,
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, what are we actually claiming ownership of?
Right. And speaking of rethinking ownership, we got to talk about this word tenant.
Okay, tenant. Yeah, usually I think of someone renting an apartment.
Right, exactly. But in property law, tenant has a much deeper meaning.
Oh, okay. So how so?
See, it can actually refer to both residency and, the thing called beneficial interest.
Beneficial interest, what's that?
It means having the ultimate control over what happens on a piece of property. So think of a farmer who leases land.
Okay.
They're a tenant, right?
Because they're living and working on the land.
Right. But the actual landowner, they might hold that beneficial interest.
So even if you have a deed to your property,
Your rights might be limited in ways you wouldn't even imagine.
it's like this hidden web of legal complexities.
Exactly. And then on top of all that, we have counties,
Oh yeah, county.
which this deep dive describes as quasi-corporations.
Quasi? What does that even mean?
So a quasi-corporation, it's it has some of the characteristics of a traditional corporation,
Sure.
but not all of them.
So they're not fully corporation.
Not fully. No, they have certain powers, certain responsibilities,
Oh.
but they're not fully sovereign states.
So they're in this weird in-between space.
Exactly, which makes you wonder where their authority really comes from.
Man, it's mind-boggling to think about all these different systems
Yeah.
and how they all connect and shape the way we understand something as basic as owning land.
It's definitely not as simple as we tend to think, that's for sure.
Not even close. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
Yeah. I mean, the more you dig into this stuff, the more you realize how much we just take for granted.
Absolutely. We started with corporations.
Then we talked about historical injustices.
The nuanced meaning of tenant.
It all ties together,
It really does, and it makes you wonder, like, what else are we missing?
Right. What other hidden aspects of our, legal and social systems are we just totally overlooking?
If something as fundamental as land ownership is this complex,
It makes you wonder what other, rabbit holes are out
what
there.
other things we think we understand, but really we're just scratching the surface.
Exactly. And that's why these deep dives are so important.
Totally. They encourage us to question everything,
To dig deeper.
to never stop learning.
Because knowledge is power.
Absolutely. So keep those questions coming, folks. Keep exploring and keep pushing the boundaries of what you think you know about the world around you, because there's always more to discover.
Always.
That's it for this deep dive. See you next time.
See ya.